Okay, ladies. I'm Tony Moss. I produce this show. Some of you probably heard that I'm a prick. I am a prick. I got one interest here, and that's the show. I don't care whether you live or die. I want to see you dance, and I want to see you smile. I can't use you if you can't smile. I can't use you if you can't show. I can't use you if you can't sell. Let me take a look at you. Spread out. Spread out. Jesus Christ. Marty, take a look at these tits. What are these, watermelons? This is a stage, babe. It's not a patch. See ya. I've seen you before.
Yes, Mr. Moss, I auditioned for you in January. You told me to get my nose fixed.
Nose looks good.
Thank you, Mr. Moss.
Nice smile, too.
Thank you, Mr. Moss.
You know what, though? Your ears are sticking out. They are. Come back and see me when you get them fixed. See ya. Can you spell MGM backwards? I bet you can't.
MGM.
I'm impressed. Come back when you fuck some of this baby fat off. See ya. I hope you got some nice wigs, tennis ball.
I do.
What kind of classes have you had?
Ice skating classes, Mr. Moss. Ballet classes, technique classes, stretch classes, jazz technique classes.
This show is called Goddess. It ain't called classes. See ya. What kind of classes have you had?
I haven't had classes.
Then what are you doing here?
I'm watching you be a prick.
Well, you ain't seen nothing yet.
Woo! Welcome to the show.
And welcome to the show, everybody.
We got a good one today.
Got a great one. And we've got a wonderful guest, everybody. My name's Pete.
And I'm Scott. And these are the movies that made us gay.
Yay!
Pete.
Yes.
This is a very, very special episode of the podcast.
It really is.
Because we get to talk about one of my all-time favorite movies. No irony in that. I think this is one of my top 5 movies of all time.
Yeah, for sure.
We finally got to our Showgirl episode.
Yes.
Our Showgirls episode.
Showgirls.
Paul Verhoeven Showgirls from 1995.
I love it. This movie's so wonderful.
So, Pete, we could have got anyone for this episode. Janet Jackson, Paula Abdul. But our buddy Dan is just what Movies That Made Us Gay is all about.
Oh my
he's
goodness.
dazzling, he's exciting, and he's very, very sexy. Welcome to the show, Dan Renzi.
Dan Renzi. Welcome.
Oh, I just hope I can be as good as the show.
I think you can. I mean, we were talking earlier. Your resume just, stands alone. We've got friend of Rachel Maddow.
Yes.
We've got
Yes.
you're a journalist for
Queerty.
Mm-hmm. And I mean, iconically, you are part of the MTV Real World Road Rules Challenge family.
So,
for over 10
Dan,
years.
when you emailed us, I was getting gas, and Pete text messaged
What did
me.
you eat?
Dan from I was getting gas. I was filling up my car.
He was having gas.
Yes, I was having gas.
had
I was passing
Chipotle.
some.
I was getting gas. I was eating something.
So
And I was sitting there, and I felt, how oddly physically discomfort the odd physical discomfort I'm experiencing. It's how perfect to get an email from Dan Renzi at the same time.
Pete text messaged me that Dan from Real World Miami wants to come on the show to do Showgirls, and I'm like, oh my fucking God.
He was gagged.
I was gagged.
He had gas and was gagged.
Yeah, yeah. Talking about, speaking of an old movie, let's talk about an old TV show with some old.
So, Dan, we've discovered on
Pluto,
there is an MTV channel that just shows Teen Mom and Real World, and it started from 1 in New York,
season 1,
and it went all the way until.
Well, it stopped right before Miami.
It stopped right before Miami, and we were pissed.
And the problem is they always group seasons 1 through 4 because it's a licensing issue.
Oh.
They cannot get licensing rights for a lot of the episodes because of the songs that they used. It's just wildly expensive to get to pay for the licensing.
Right.
So a lot of these episodes are never going to be aired again in a lot of these seasons. The later episodes, you'll notice that by the time they got to season 20 or whatever, who even remembers at this point?
Nobody watches
the music is all this really crappy, synthesized.
Yeah.
It's not real songs.
Yeah.
It's just sort of filler songs. And they did that because that way they could, they own the rights to the music because it's not real music.
Yeah.
But like on ours, I mean, I remember vividly on an episode of mine when all my roommates were talking about how much they hated me because I was pick which episode was that? Every single one of them. But my roommates were talking about how much they hated me because I was becoming a snob. And Ace of Base, It's a Beautiful Life was playing in the background. And I was like, oh, I have made it. I mean, like this. I have never felt so famous in my life. It's a beautiful, and it was like this, and it was like the camera would zoom in on my face, and I was like making kind of a snobby look, and then it was like showing Miami Beach, and then there's Dan, and he's such a snob, and I was like, I have loved being the villain. This is fantastic because I get all the best Ace of Base music in the background.
Indeed.
But that's what prevents it from ever going into reruns.
So, Dan, I have attempted to do Google searches to find you coming down the stairs in your red bikini briefs after the Truth or Dare game, and I cannot find it. It is nowhere online.
That wasn't bikini briefs; those were red underwear. But whatever.
Why do I remember them as red bikini briefs, though?
It's sort of like there's a box in my parents' basement. I don't know if you read Harry Potter, but it's like I have a box and it's like one of my Horcruxes where I have just of my MTV stuff, and you can't throw it away or part of my soul will die.
You'll just wither.
But if you touch it, you will be cursed or you will die too. And so it's just all sitting there, and I can't even bring myself to look at it. And like.
Well, I mean, we won't delve too deep into, the catharsis or what have you of your time on MTV.
We have so much to talk about.
We do.
That's so much more important.
It's already going to be probably a 2-hour episode.
Oh, I'm exhausted already at just thinking about it. I cannot even wrap my mind around the gravity of this conversation. We are going to talk about the most important artistic endeavor of our generation.
I mean, as far as I'm concerned.
It really is my favorite movie. And people think it's hyperbole. And I'm like, no, I really... Like, when I saw Showgirls for the first time and people were like, oh, my God, it was terrible. And I'm like, I really thought it was a good movie. I don't see what the problem was. And I kept watching it and watching it. And I'm like, this is genius. But you have to be a special person to get it.
You either get it or you don't get it.
Yeah.
Either you get it or you don't.
Yeah.
And it's like, I get it. And my friends were like, this movie sucks. I'm like, get out. You don't, I can't even, it's like, but you have to really appreciate it.
Right.
And like, or you have to like be a certain kind of person to really appreciate it.
Okay.
And I am that special kind of person.
Good. I have to say right up front, right at the top of this episode, that I'm the guy that either leaves the room or likes to turn it off right at the party because I am not here for that scene. It is way too visceral for me.
That's when you just skip that scene.
Yeah. So I'm good with skipping it because actually Nomi's revenge scene is really good. Just the look, the performance, all of that is actually worth it. But yeah, the party scene to me, I'm just like I saw it fully, and then I'm just like, all right, I remember it, I know that it's there, and let's press the next chapter on the DVD. Which thank God for DVDs, we can just go to the next chapter or Blu-rays or what have you. But Scott, talk about...
Yeah, and I understand, and when we'll get to that, when we get to that scene. Yeah. But I understand. Not everything has to be entertainment.
Sure.
Like if you have an artistic, in all seriousness, like not everything has to be fun. Not everything has to be happy. There are things to learn. And when you look at this movie as a time capsule of when it was made, and I mean, it's interesting to watch a movie where women are just treated so horribly for the sake of entertainment, like the characters. And it's like, why is this even okay?
Yeah.
Like why is doing, but then you watch Oz and the same thing happens to men, in pretty much every episode of Oz. And so if you sort of remove the entertainment aspect of it and realize that, Paul Verhoeven did have something to say.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, well, we'll just, take it for what it is and just kind of grit your teeth and wait, because it's fortunately not a very long scene.
Right. And it's like you're saying, it's serving the story. So, we have covered Basic Instinct on this show.
We have. Our good friend Chip Pope did Basic Instinct with us.
Yes.
So we got into a little bit of Paul Verhoeven and also Joe Esterhaus.
Yeah.
One of the other men behind Showgirls.
Yeah, I mean, Basic Instinct. I mean, and it's brilliant because Sharon Stone, you can't even. I mean, I said the force of nature is a joke, but she really is. Like watching Sharon Stone vamp her way through that movie, and she knew exactly what she was doing, and it was a stroke of genius. I'm watching Sharon Stone in Basic Instinct. Every scene she was lit differently. Every scene she had a nuance that was new, that brought some new life to it, and every scene was more she was just more gorgeous than the next. And it's like the magnetism that she had. Yeah. And that's what the character needed. You needed to have that magnetism. And it's like, wow. And that's the kind of star that these scripts need. And I think that's where Showgirls failed because, and when you had movies like, The Jagged Edge, when they made The Jagged Edge, and Glenn Close was in The Jagged Edge, and then you have Basic Instinct, and you have Sharon Stone, and it's like, my God, how do you top this? And then for the biggest, most extravagant, ridiculous, over the top artistic statement, and then they got Elizabeth Berkley, and it's like, oh, bummer. And so it just. And I think that's where it really lost people because she just wasn't tough enough. Like you need to have, if that, even if you had the roles switched and you had Gina Gershon as Nomi Malone, I think it would have been better because Gina Gershon is tough and she can vamp her way through a script and she knew exactly what she was doing when she was playing Cristal Connors and Showgirls. Yeah. And, she sort of stole her scenes, and it's like, you need to have someone with that gravitas. And Elizabeth Berkley just didn't.
And I wonder if it was just kind of not handicapped, but I mean they needed a dancer as well as an actress.
Yeah, because I was reading some of the actresses that were considered for Nomi Malone. Angelina Jolie, I think, met with Paul Verhoeven. Jenny McCarthy says that she met, but Jenny can't dance, so that's why she ended up not getting it.
Among other things.
So you never heard Jenny McCarthy's audition story?
It's
hysterical.
Isn't it about her to tell it? Isn't it about her not
called in for? She went to the finals, and she was actually in the final running for it. And they taught her the choreography from Goddess, and she did it with the fingers and the jazz hands in front of her face. Yeah, and then she did great. And then the final audition was they wanted her to come in and just dance. And what she didn't realize, there was supposed to be a striptease, but she went in and danced like she was at the club. And it was like, she's just this white girl from, the suburbs of Chicago. And she's like, step, touch, and like snapping her fingers. And she was in the, one of the lead choices for the part. And then she blew it because she couldn't. She just wasn't. Oh wow! She couldn't dance in improv. Yeah, and so not that I want to give Jenny McCarthy any credit for anything. So I mean, she's awful, but whatever.
Another one that was very close to getting it, and Paul Verhoeven said that he really liked her audition, and he would have been fine with casting her. But I think that she just was so much of an unknown at the time; they didn't really want to take the chance on it. Was Charlize Theron. And Charlize Theron, he said, had no problem with the nudity. She could dance. And he doesn't really, he says that she was fine, but they just didn't end up going with her. And he says that he's kind of glad that she didn't get the role now, just because she's gone on to have such a successful career that she might not have had that if her first big breakout was Showgirls.
Yeah, it would have. I mean, but who knows? Yeah. If she could have pulled it off, because there's been a lot of bad movies that weren't that bad. If you look at, Nod was made by the same team, but if you look at what's the movie with Cher and Christina Aguilera?
Burlesque.
Burlesque could have been a disaster, but it wasn't that bad, and everyone just sort of walked away unscathed. Yeah, and there are ways to make these movies, and it's like, well, if it's just kind of bad, everyone's just like, whatever. Not everybody's careers were ruined. Kyle MacLachlan has done well. Gina Gershon has gone on and had a great career.
I mean, she went on to get bound.
People do survive these things. I just think that it's just. I don't know. Charlize Theron. I mean, coulda, woulda, shoulda. To think about this movie with Charlize Theron in it, my mind is spinning.
That's crazy. Elizabeth Berkley, fresh off Saved by the Bell.
I think probably took it right after season 4 was canceled.
I wonder if she was kind of handicapped by her, sitcom acting style. And I feel like it just kind of reads through when she's, and some of her line delivery that just comes off as a little Saved by the Bell acting, where she's just like, cheeseburger and a soda, and I'm just like, oh, girl, like.
But what I like about it is that the performance,
cheeseburger, soda, and fries. Get her some brown rice.
The performance is all over the place, but I like that this bitch is committing.
Well, okay, she is.
She is like in it.
But that was all. I mean, that was all Paul Verhoeven's directing. I mean, he admits freely that he kept doing take after take and making her, like there's the scene when she first walks into the goddess auditions and she's dressed and then she sees everyone in their underwear basically, and she runs backstage and she grabs a makeup brush and she starts jamming makeup on her face. They told her, it's like, how does Elizabeth Berkley not even know how to do makeup? Well, obviously she does, but they made her slap makeup on her face because it was Paul Verhoeven's style, that he wanted everything stylized and everything bigger than life. And the line readings that Elizabeth Berkley gave, they were purposely, just so over the top because that was the way that Paul Verhoeven did it.
Right.
And that's where, she's not a big actress like that. Like, and so that it wasn't that she couldn't act, it was that she just couldn't do what he wanted her to do, and she kind of got screwed.
Yeah,
because it was anyone else, like again in Gina Gershon acting like that, it was hilarious and she was fabulous. And in Gina Gershon, you emerged from that movie completely golden because he was like, well, this was just a funny project. Because she knew how to act like a drag queen.
Yes.
She knew how to have fun with it. And Elizabeth Berkley was trying so hard to, make the director happy that she just looked like she was in a high school drama club. And so, and it's not her fault, and once again, I think that she was amazing.
Yeah.
But for all the wrong reasons.
I
do feel bad for her, but it's, and Paul Verhoeven, he's the first one to say, he's like, I am the one who asked her to do this.
Yeah.
Like this was not her choice. She did not play this part this way because, she wanted to. I was the one who made her do it.
I mean, as the director, I feel like there are a couple of line deliveries that kind of, there's a good actress in there,
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. I mean, it's kind of played for a joke now, and people love the line. But when she says back east, and Molly says where, and she says and different places, that delivery of like different places, she's just so frustrated. And maybe it's the middle of the night, and who knows how many takes they'd been through, and she's just like, "Fuck, man, how many questions do you have for me?"
Throwing those fries,
She's just like jamming those fries in the fucking ketchup, and she's just like different places, and she just sinks back into her
every
chair.
Single thing she said was so wonderful.
Yeah,
I just loved it so much.
And that to me, that little bit, I feel for Nomi being in this new city. She just got all her shit stolen. This girl's giving me the third degree, and now I'm just like, you know what? I don't need to tell you my whole story right now. Just understand that I'm from different places.
I think that I applaud your earnest efforts at taking it seriously, because I think that was just one of the crappiest scenes that has ever been written or performed ever. Throwing French fries and then her stuff gets stolen and she throws up, and it's like this is glorious.
Is like the first 7 minutes of the movie.
The first 7.
It's just we get her drawn out that switchblade, which makes me laugh every time. Every time I just cackle to myself.
And and she looks so amazing though. I mean, that's the thing. Like, she looks like with the hat and her plumped up. I don't know how she got her lips plumped. If it was, I don't know if she got injections or whatever. And she's got that sort of, nude colored lipstick just glistening on her bee stung lips, and she's just sitting there.
The blonde curls.
It's just. And it's like, you know what? And it was when I saw that opening scene and she's standing there, and I thought, maybe she's going to be able to pull this off. Like maybe Elizabeth Berkley, like she had the presence, she had the confidence, and she got in, and then then she pulls the switchblade out, and I was like, oh no, this is going to be terrible.
So and
it was so much more. So it's like, she does have these moments, but it's when she's relaxed. And it's like, she sort of embodies this character, and she's not trying to please anybody, and she's just sort of standing there looking cool, and then she starts saying lines, and it's like, well, never mind.
So when was the first time we all watched this movie? Dan, I'm curious of when the first time you watched this movie was. Do you remember? I'm sure you do.
The first time I watched it, honestly, the first time I watched it, I saw it on TV. It was on VH1, and it was the edited, censored version.
So you got the bikinis. You got the painted on bikinis
then. So I got
then.
the CGI bikinis. A lot of the sex was cut out.
Wow.
And it really played just as a straight drama.
Yeah.
And a lot of the most ridiculous parts were cut out. And I thought it was funny. And I was like, oh, well, I thought this was a pretty good movie. And I even mentioned it to a friend of mine, and a bunch of gay guys. And they're like, oh, girl, no, you got to watch the NC-17 version. And just those slight differences. So first of all the nipples.
Yeah.
And, the nipples, Nomi's nipples are a character unto themselves.
Oh, my goodness.
And they should have their own credit at the end of the movie. And, and just the gratuitous, unappealing sex scenes in their full glory, no pun intended, and just the raw, nasty energy of everyone's boobs flying around the screen. It really did make a difference. And the second time I saw it, I kind of paid more attention, and I was like, wait, no, this really is something significant. This really is artistically an amazing feat of cinematography and film work. This is not just for fun. This movie says something. And I was like, you guys, oh my God. And my friends were like, what the hell is wrong with you? This is the worst movie. And it was not. And so, I was in college when it came out, and I just missed it because everyone said it was terrible. Yeah. And it really was a lesson in you can't believe what people tell you, and you have to appreciate things for what they are. And it's just because it's not something that is easily digestible as a movie doesn't mean that it's not amazing, because it is. It is amazing. It is a profound statement of a movie. And I have seen it, I don't know, probably 20 times since then. Whenever I'm feeling a little down, I just watch Showgirls and it makes everything better.
So I was introduced to this movie in college by a past guest of the show, Darcy Miller, who did Interview with the Vampire. Sure. I remember first meeting her because I had met her at a bar. I had met her at Flippers in Missoula, Montana, and then I saw her and we were washing our clothes and we were just talking, and she's just like, "Have you ever seen Showgirls?" And just like, no, I've never seen Showgirls. She's like, girl, you got to watch Showgirls. So then I started to hang out with Darcy and her husband, Ben Moore, and we just started talking about Showgirls, and they're like, you really need to watch it. We need to do a proper viewing. So I bought them, I think it was for Christmas, the VIP edition. Dan, do you remember the VIP edition? Yeah. That had a pin,
oh, yeah, of course.
Pin the tassel on Nomi, and it came with shot glasses. I bought them, the DVD set of it.
Pin the tassels on Nomi's titties?
Yeah.
Wow. And that's got to be out of print by now. Maybe on eBay.
It is. It's out of print because then they did the documentary You Don't Know Me.
Right. And that just came out. Yep.
That just came out recently. And that guy actually, couldn't figure out, because I kind of half-heartedly watched the documentary because I kind of got bored with it.
Yeah.
But the guy who did the VIP edition, he is involved in the documentary. I don't think he's the filmmaker. I know he's interviewed, and he speaks
he's kind of
a
all
lot.
over it.
And he does a lot of the same stuff.
And I've listened to his commentary too.
It's all in You Don't Know Me, and it's okay.
That was I kind of thought about that too when we were watching it. I was like, didn't he say that in the commentary?
Yeah, because that guy is kind of partly responsible for the big resurgence of this movie, because he took that movie on sort of a tour roadshow where they would just show it, and he would just set up a card table and just do a commentary on it, and he pretty much does that commentary on the DVD too.
Yeah.
And I just remember watching it and just thinking, this is the most fun and ridiculous movie I've ever seen in my whole entire life. The last hour of it.
Your first experience was the VIP edition.
Yes. So watching it with a big group of friends who all appreciated Showgirls and just taking it all in.
Yeah.
And it's a movie that I bought the Blu-ray to it, and it's a movie that I still have to revisit every few months. And whenever it's on cable, because it's on premium cable a lot.
It is on cable a lot.
I just have to dip in and watch 5 or 10 minutes and then change the channel.
Oh, no. No, I have to watch from the beginning. No.
It's one of those things where
you have to watch it from the beginning to the end.
No,
I usually just have to kind of dip into it.
You're saying this on your podcast. You're saying this on your podcast like this is okay. Like people are going to do this. No, you cannot dip in and watch. Like this is not something that you can just casually, brush through.
Sure.
You do that with Bring It On or whatever. Showgirls, you have to sit down. Mm-hmm. You have to start at the beginning.
Make an evening of it.
You have to really let it wash over you,
light
to
some
really
candles,
fully understand the power of because Nomi is, she's an uncontrollable force. Like she is someone you can't control. Nomi, you have to just sort of let Nomi wash over you, and you have to really look at all the symbolism in the movie and understand every shot is shot a specific way, and you can be like, watch. Oh well, I'm just going to watch the part with. The part where, she licks the stripper pole and it's like, what's the backstory to that? And you miss all of it. So ladies and gentlemen of the podcasting community, do not do that.
Watch it from beginning to end.
Do not click on it if it's on TV unless you can start at the beginning. Well, it's a horror to think about it.
I was shocked. Okay. So I came to this movie the latest out of, everybody here. I missed it in theaters, and I didn't feel like I was too cool for it, and it was never a thing where I was just like, oh, I heard that movie's bad, I'm not going to watch it. I love those type of things. I like things that are kind of in bad taste or whatever, and then watching them and enjoying them for reasons that maybe the general public might not understand, whatever, but I just never got around to it. I don't know what it was, and I liked Verhoeven. I'd seen Basic Instinct. I love Starship Troopers, whatever.
Another good one, Starship Troopers. That's another. See, Paul Verhoeven, he really is. He's spectacular.
He's well-rounded and an auteur. But when Scott and I started...
Speaking of well-rounded, we have Casper Van Dien's butt.
Oh, my goodness.
I was going to say the future...
Any director who puts that in a movie is just...
The future of co-ed showers.
Sign me up.
Yes, indeed. Co-ed showering in Starship Troopers. That might be what brought me to that movie. But, when Scott and I started seeing each other, he was like, you haven't seen Showgirls, you have to watch it. And I watched it. I just let it wash over me. I was just like, where has this movie been all my life? And I started doing a little bit of research on it. And when I kind of discovered the whole, airbrushed bikinis and all of this crazy, the movie stands alone, but the legend of the movie is almost just as good, the making of what happened after it was released with how it got ripped apart, the legs that it found on cable, and then now this audience that it has of people that really appreciate it. It's just,
and I'm glad. When they showed it, I didn't live in LA, but they showed it at Hollywood Forever Cemetery, and you guys didn't go to that.
I was bummed I couldn't go. I was mad.
Yeah, I had several friends who went, and and for those people who are listening, the Hollywood Forever Cemetery, they have, it's where lots of famous people are buried, and they would set up movies, and you can sit outside on blankets and watch movies, and it's lots of fun. And the cemetery itself is really cool. And when they showed Showgirls at night, Elizabeth Berkley showed up.
Yep.
And it was the first time, because for years she refused to talk about it in the press, and it was she had been eviscerated in the press so badly that she couldn't believe that there would be anybody who really did enjoy this movie that really would want to talk to her and say, we love the end result. We think that this is great. And so she showed up, and for the first time, she acknowledged the fans and thanked everybody for, giving this movie all this life.
Yeah.
All these years later. And it's to think about the years of torment that this poor woman, Elizabeth Berkley,
and she was
think about
21?
Just how miserable this experience must, just ruined her career, and just, she truly was humiliated by the press of people just calling her names and telling her she had no talent, and, and just saying, going much further than critiquing her performance.
Yeah.
And, and it's like to be bullied like that in the press, to not believe someone when they come up to you and say, I love this movie, and to always think that they're saying that they're doing it sarcastically.
Yeah.
And it's like, no, I mean, I really do. I mean, like, I think that you can pick apart, well, there was this mistake and this line was read wrong, and, Paul Verhoeven made you do this and whatever. And, people you have to say lines about people coming all over you or whatever. And it's like, but when you take it all together, it's a work of genius.
Yeah.
And there are people who love it. And, and it's like, we're not laughing at you when we're laughing. And I do feel really bad for her.
Yeah.
And that's why I think, one of the reasons why gay guys really like this movie, because, it's the same reason why people love Cher. And it's the same reason why gay guys like John, the actors John Waters was purposely ridiculous. But like, you love we all understand what it's like to be, beat down by society and finally just stand up and say, you know what? I don't care. I'm just going to be me.
Yeah.
And finally, at this movie, I think Elizabeth Berkley accepted the fact that she's like, you're a gay icon, whether you want to be or not. And you can either enjoy that or you can pretend it's not happening. But most people enjoy it. So you might as well just soak it up. And I think finally she's like, okay, gay guys have found something in this movie. And it's like, so I do, on a serious note, I really do feel bad for her.
Yeah.
And, and I would practice like, well, if I ever met Elizabeth Berkley, I would have to be really cool because I wouldn't want to spook her.
Yeah.
Because I would want to run up and be like, I love you, and just like throw myself at her. But she would probably think that I was being sarcastic. And I'm like, no, but I really do. I mean, I really love this performance. I love this movie. And I would love to talk to you about it, like for the rest of the day. So so it's just, and I think, gay people, we know what it's like to have a room full of people laughing. And you're like, well, how do I take control of this?
Yeah.
And it took her several years to learn how to do it, but she finally did.
Yeah. And
good for her.
Because I can only imagine people coming up to you and saying, oh, I love you. I love this movie. I love Showgirls. It's so terrible. And it's like, that wouldn't make me feel good. It's like, no. I get it. I get the whole idea. I get the joke, blah, blah, blah. But just saying, I love you. This movie's so bad. It's like, don't, and people have no chill and say that.
No.
So that's just like, awful. A couple of years ago, she was on, Tiffany Thiessen had a short-lived cooking show. And she was, on the Cooking Channel, and not even the Food Network,
okay,
the Cooking Channel.
Terrible.
Yeah, it wasn't even the Food Network; it was the Cooking Channel, their low-budget sister network.
Give a cooking show to anyone. But when you have Trisha Yearwood with a cooking show, that's actually really good.
And that
it's like, well,
that show's got
Valerie
legs.
Bertinelli, same thing.
Yeah,
like these people have cooking shows. Like, well, why not try everybody? It's like,
so they gave Tiffany one, and she had Elizabeth as a guest, and they both looked
great,
amazing, slamming. I took a picture, I posted it on my Instagram. I was like, look at these two broads, like they look so great. And it was just so nice to see the two of them. You could tell that they've
kept up through the years,
and they were friends. Just because of their little conversation they were having, and it was just cute and great. And I was just like, wow, this is really nice to see Elizabeth looking so great. And this was before the I think it was right before the Hollywood Forever showing. So it's nice to see that, she's kind of come to this place where she's like, all right, it's been this long.
I think that she's also talked about it. I think I've read an interview with her in like The Advocate or something, that so many quote unquote bad movies come out and they're just quickly forgotten and they just collect dust on like a video store shelf when we still had videos. But Showgirls is still shocking. People still talk about it. It has not.
I think it's the most successful. I know it's on the top 10 of most successful at home sales.
It made MGM a lot of money on home video.
Yeah. absolutely. Like people, and you people don't, jokes only go so far. You know, I mean, like when you have something that's a joke and people, oh, it's stupid. I mean, people don't keep talking about the joke for, I mean, this book came out, it was like, when was it? 1998?
1995.
That it came out?
September 22nd, 1995.
1995. Wow. It came out in 1995?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Wow.
Oh, you know what? It did, because I was in college. I'm sorry. I was in college, and because I remember the first time we even heard about it, I was at college, and my friends were like, oh, wow, that's really hot, or whatever. And look at that. Oh, she's so hot. And I was like, that looks fabulous. That looks amazing. Oh, my God, she's fabulous.
I wanted to talk a little bit about kind of leading up to Showgirls, because Basic Instinct was such a huge runaway hit that kind of this is the tail end of sort of movies for adults, like the erotic dramas. That Joe Esterhaus got a $2 million advance to write the script, and he said that he was inspired by the MGM musicals of the golden age of Hollywood, and even the script itself sort of resembles All About Eve and has a very classic structure to it. It's like A Star Is Born if the lead is like a stripper. And these guys thought that they could make an NC-17 movie and have it kind of have the same success of Basic Instinct. In an open wide, NC-17 movies do not open wide.
Yeah.
And so just kind of, it's just them thinking that they could actually pull this off through all of their success. All of like Verhoeven's success with like Total Recall.
There's no reason why this movie should have failed. There's no reason. They had everything. I mean, they had, when you have Joe Esterhaus, or I can never pronounce his name right.
Yeah.
When you've got these people, who have written hits before and directed hits before, and it could have, it should have been so sexy, and there were lots of movies that had lots of sex in them before. Like Sex Lies and Videotape had a lot of sex in it, and that did fine. And there's a long legacy of Hollywood movies where if you treat the sex appropriately, that yes, people will absolutely, go and see it. And the whole NC-17 rating thing, oh, it's so scandalous. But like, there's no reason why this movie should have failed. Yeah. And it was just such an unmitigated disaster that, just because things look good on paper doesn't mean that it's going to work out. But they had so much talent. Yeah. They had so much talent behind this movie that it's like, how could this possibly go wrong? And oh God, it did. And that's what makes it so right.
Is it just the idea that maybe someone with, a European person attacking this subject matter, which has so much nudity and sexuality, and, in Europe and, Scandinavian person like Paul Verhoeven, nudity and sexuality is not treated the way it is in cinema, how it is treated just in America.
In general, I mean, like they have such a different attitude about sex. Yeah. People in Europe will go to bathhouses. Yeah. Like, it's just not a big deal.
Yeah.
Like people will go to people talk about going to bathhouses. Like, I mean, and there was an era in the United States where bathhouses were more popular, but there they still are. Yeah. Like, it's just, you go and you hang out, and people will go there every week.
It's a social thing. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, and like in Germans, they get naked in public. You've got, Angela Merkel is, running around naked at parks when she was a teenager. And it's like when the pictures came out showing the Prime Minister of Germany, the response was like, so? I mean, like, it's just, they just have a much more matter-of-fact attitude about it. And it's not that it's not that they're more sexually charged.
Right.
It's not that it's sexy or whatever. It's just much more literal and, I guess, blunt. And in America, part of our sexual culture is the sin aspect of it. And this idea that there's something naughty about it, and that's what makes it exciting.
Yeah.
And with Showgirls, there was none of that. I mean, there was no suspense. There was no eroticism. There was no danger to it. It was just all right there.
Yeah.
And which is what made it, the most sexually unappealing work that has ever been created.
But I think for somebody who had not even bothered to see it at the time, and news reporters and critics from local news stations and things like that weren't going to go on the 6 o'clock local news and say Showgirls was great. They couldn't talk about this movie that was about strippers, and say, hey, it actually is kind of fun. Because the people would have just been like, well, you some kind of perv, It would have just been taken as like these people are like pervy people if they were just like, oh, but actually it's kind of good. So I think it was just this mentality where you couldn't even say you liked it, even if you did, because it's that stripper movie, And so I think that's where a lot of it, people who hadn't even seen it or bothered to see it, were just like, no, that's just trash. It's trash,
Well, and Demi Moore had done striptease in 1996, and that. But again, that was much more. It was just even it's hard to say about a stripper movie, but it was a little bit more demure.
Yeah,
and
she plays a mother in it too.
When, that iconic scene of Demi Moore walking out on stage and shaking her boobs back and forth. It was a much more powerful, like, liberating moment of Demi Moore, the amazing Demi Moore, making this grand statement by being in a movie about being a stripper who, stripper with a heart of gold or whatever. It still had something, I don't know. I mean, like, there's still an element of, I guess, of danger to it, like, oh, I can't believe I'm doing this. Oh, I'm so brave. Yeah. Oh, Demi Moore is so brave.
Yep.
And like, there was none of that in Showgirls. It was just like, look, put some ice on your nipples. It was, God, it was just nothing about that would speak to an American audience about being erotic.
Yeah.
And which is what made it genius. And like, there's nothing enticing or erotic or titillating about any of the sex, any of the nudity. The only exciting thing was when Kyle MacLachlan walks, which I don't even know if it was really him or if it was a body double.
I think it's a butt double.
I think it's a body double too, because it's a pretty juicy butt.
Yeah.
But it's like when he walks into the pool with the bottle of champagne, it's like that's the only remotely enticing. And then not just from a gay perspective. I mean, all these parts with women, naked and throwing themselves around. It's like, where is the sense of restraint or there's no tease to it. It was just like, bleh, right there. And it's like, okay, yeah. I mean, if I was like, a Nordic filmmaker, I suppose maybe, okay, you will now take off your shirt and show us your nipples. Like maybe he thinks it's hot. I don't know. But not us.
Yeah. All the scenes backstage with the goddess dancers just like ripping their tops off and giving them to Molly to sew up and all that. But like you said, it's presented so matter-of-factly, and there's tons of nudity backstage, but it's not presented in a sexual way. It's just, this is our job. We're dancers. We do this topless, and I need my costume fixed.
Yeah.
My snatch is going to be showing.
Smiling snatch. I have a smiling snatch.
You want to see me go out there without a G?
Oh, it's terrible.
Yeah.
So,
now,
who writes it? But you know what? They said them.
Yeah.
No, Dan, you noticed that one of Madonna's dancers is in Goddess, right?
Oh, of course.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, yeah. I mean, what was I don't know his name. I forget. But yeah, I mean, he was in Truth or Dare, and he didn't say much in Truth or Dare, and he only had a couple words in Showgirls. But of course, I clocked that immediately. I mean,
one of the main judges from the earlier seasons of So You Think You Could Dance is in Goddess as well. I forget his name, but I was like, yeah, I know him from So You Think You Could Dance.
Really?
Yeah. Tice? No, is it Tice? I'll look it up.
Whenever I rewatch all of the Goddess scenes, I'm always very fascinated with what kind of a show is Goddess. So it's beginning at like Goddess BC, because Gina Gershon is birthed from a volcano. But then there's like a motorcycle number, and then it ends in this like church disco where Cristal like is ascended into heaven. I think that the coffee table book breaks that down a little more, because I've heard of this coffee table book that Paul Verhoeven goes into like all of the visual themes of the movie a lot, and he breaks down.
And there
Goddess.
are a lot of visual themes. Every scene, you know, there is a reason why they shot everything the way that they shot it. Mm-hmm. Everything is symbolism, and the Goddess show. The whole idea is it's a tribute to the Hollywood movies of the time,
right.
You know, and like you have these big production numbers where, you know, because Las Vegas shows really weren't like that. Like if you went to the Stardust, which people, I don't know if people realize the Stardust was an actual hotel.
Yeah.
I mean, like it was a very, very, very much a real place. And but when you went there, the shows really weren't like that. Like they were more traditional Las Vegas shows of just sort of topless women with feathers sort of dancing around, with the idea of like them simply being topless was kind of, that was the show.
Sure. Just doing a kick line.
And it just, you know, and it wasn't as elaborate as the show, as the production that we saw in Showgirls. But that's why like the whole wedding thing, there was always like in the old vaudeville days, or like you know, the Ziegfeld Follies, there's, you know, like there's always a bride scene, and so they took these little elements that they put in, and it didn't really have anything to do with the movie.
Yeah.
Which, why have something in your movie that's relevant to the script? Well, not Showgirls. We don't need it. And let's just put things in for fun. And so there's, you know, it was sort of a homage to Hollywood. So at least, you know, they're trying to make it artistically relevant why these people were dancing around naked in lava. But it wasn't.
Yeah.
It was just them just, you know, let's throw stuff at the wall and see what sticks.
There's like multiple like full size Harley Davidson motorcycles.
They drive that bike out onto the fucking stage.
It doesn't seem safe to me. I don't know.
And like my favorite symbolism of Showgirls is there's a scene at the beginning where Nomi is sitting outside of the Luxor, and she's trying to get in to go to she's trying to get into the audition at any Las Vegas show, and Molly grabs her and brings her in to meet everybody backstage. And when she's sitting there waiting, she has her hand on her head and she's like thinking, and she's right in front of the Sphinx that's at the entrance of the Luxor. And the whole idea is that the Sphinx in ancient Egypt kept the secrets of, you know, the spirits.
Right.
And you had to get past the Sphinx. That was the whole thing. Like if you watch Aladdin, you have to solve the riddles, and, you know, otherwise you're going to get sucked into the sand. And so you cannot, in ancient Egypt, you had to get past the Sphinx and solve the Sphinx's mysteries in order to unlock the secrets of the tombs. And so Nomi is sitting in front of the Sphinx of the Luxor with her hand on her head and her I'm thinking hard face. Like, I wonder how I'm going to get an audition. And suddenly Molly runs up and it's like, come on, let's go. And she gets up and she runs. And and the world just is never the same. And so like little things like that. And, you know, keep in mind that when I watch Showgirls, I always have to pause it and have a 10-minute explanation like I just did of how important this scene is. Like, see, Molly or Nomi is perplexed by, you know, the secrets of Las Vegas. How is she going to break her way in? And, you know, and that's why she's in front of the Sphinx. And at this point, everyone's like, seriously, just press play. It's, you know, it's like, I'm like, now you understand. Like, this is Paul Verhoeven. Like, everything is very visual.
Yeah.
Like every mirror, every little nuance that they've got of like the way that it's shot. everything means something. It's not just, they're not just turning the camera on, you know, and just shooting it as a bad movie. It's like all the artistic stuff in here is relevant and it all perpetuates the story. So, and scene by scene, I could go on.
A lot of mirrors in this movie. I'll tell you what. When I watch that scene with her in front of the Sphinx, I'm thinking to myself, how'd they get that shot? Where is that bench? Yeah. I've been to the Luxor. I don't know where.
They probably had to put it in.
Remodeled. I mean, they've actually. Because I am this serious about Showgirls. I actually, went to Las Vegas and was trying to find the filming locations, and unfortunately, most of the filming locations don't really exist in Las Vegas.
And also, I think that a lot of it was shot in Reno.
The what?
I think a lot of it was shot in Reno.
Well, a lot of it was just in a soundstage.
Yeah.
The pool scene, the pool that they all had, that she had sex with the waterfall.
Yes.
That actually is in the suburbs of LA.
Okay.
That's just some filmmaker's
Somebody's
friend.
house.
That
Yeah.
just
It's probably in like Tarzana
with the neon palm trees. And so like in a lot of it's just not there. I think the Crave Club, if I remember correctly, I think that was a nightclub in Las Vegas at the time. But like a lot with the Luxor, they actually redid a lot of it, and they took a lot of the Egyptology or the Egypt, whatever, the stuff that made it, the decoration. They took a lot of it out because they're trying to sort of calm down the glamour of the Luxor. And because I was looking for that bench. Yeah. And I was looking for the spot. And they're like, well, we've kind of re-landscaped and we've taken a lot of the Egypt references out because we're trying to like not make it so Egypt-y. And I'm like, but that's
giant pyramid.
Like, why would you do that? It's ridiculous. And like, you need to put back Nomi's bench and you need to have a plaque on it.
Yeah.
And like, so people can come and take selfies and it'll be like the next gay spot to come.
Yeah.
And they didn't think
that shot. That shot where she's sitting, I believe she's sitting like, I don't know if she's on a hood of a car and she's eating a burger.
It's
you see the flamingo.
It's looking out over the strip. Yeah,
that wherever she was there, I believe that is gone. That if that was
probably a torn down parking structure now.
Yeah.
That was a parking structure. That was just a parking garage. But at this point, I mean, like you could. Yeah, I was trying to look for that. I never got around to actually finding that spot, but that parking garage, they've built up. Any parking garage has now been turned into a hotel tower. So a lot of that stuff is just gone.
The Las Vegas of 1995 is gone. It is a completely different city.
Yeah. So, and I mentioned, I mean, even the Stardust being very much a real place. The Stardust. Did you ever see the movie? Speaking of Sharon Stone, this comes full circle. Did you ever see the movie Casino?
Of course,
with Sharon Stone.
Yes.
Okay. The Stardust was the inspiration for the Tangiers.
Sure.
Okay.
That was the casino. That was the casino in the movie Casino, and really was the place where the mob would sort of launder money and grift money off of, and that it was like one of the mob's major sources of income, and it had all sorts of problems, because people were going to jail for tax evasion or whatever we would get the organized crime for. And so finally they sold it and they tore it down because they actually had redone it several times,
right, in
the hopes of, because back then, like, Las Vegas was not glamorous.
Right.
And so they actually, as Las Vegas gained in popularity, like it was in like the 80s where they redid the Stardust to make it not so trashy. And then they sold it and they just tore it down. And then the whole thing went bust because they were going to build a new, one of these fancy new casinos, and ended up not doing anything with it. And now it's actually finally under construction again, and it's going to be the Resorts World, which is right across the street from the Encore, which is like on the northern. If you're in Las Vegas, it's by where the Stratosphere Needle is. And so like my parents had their honeymoon at the Stardust.
Oh my God.
Like, people really went there. And so that's when I was like, well, where did the Stardust go? I'm like, well, we just tore it down. I'm like, how could you have done that? Like, that's a part of, I mean, like, imagine if the Stardust was there, that would have been the ultimate gay casino.
Yeah,
because
for sure.
the gay guys would have moved in, and they would have turned it into something fabulous. But no, they had to turn and build something bigger. So that's a shame.
Another thing that I'm very fascinated with the Stardust in this movie is all of the media coverage that they have for Goddess. Like, where are these interviews being aired? Like, I don't really think that, like...
Who are these cameras?
I don't know if, like, Showgirls were covered on, like, Entertainment Tonight or anything.
Floating in the heavens, because that's where Nomi Malone lives. That's where they're happening.
But just, like, where is all of this footage going? Like, who's watching this on TV?
Like, maybe, you know, Entertainment Tonight would go out to Vegas for the start of a new... Showgirl review.
Oh, if even that.
I don't know.
For a new Britney Spears concert, yeah. But like, no, for a regular Las Vegas show. I mean, can you imagine that news conference every time a Cirque du Soleil show opened? No, that was absurd.
Yeah, but I mean, it's a great clip.
Yes.
Do we have that clip?
Yeah, it's there.
Oh, let's take a listen, shall we? Because this is kind of amazing.
We could have brought anyone into this show. LaToya, Suzanne, you name it. We wanted Cristal. Cristal Connors defines what Las Vegas is all about. She's dazzling, she's exciting, and she's very, very sexy.
How does it feel to be back in
What
Vegas?
about Broadway? Miss Connors, how did you feel about the show tonight?
I think it's the best show I've ever been in. I only hope I can do it justice.
You did, my dear, and you will.
There's
can you imagine? I love the reference. Like, we could have had anyone, and one of the stars of reference is Suzanne.
Suzanne Summers had a Vegas review.
Can you imagine Suzanne Summers? Oh God,
in
that
Goddess,
would have been the only casting choice. Can you imagine if Elizabeth Berkley wasn't available and they got Suzanne Summers? And like, you know, just the thought that whoever wrote that line, if it was Joe Esterhaus or someone else, they're like, you know, who is an amazing star that
LaToya Jackson,
Janet Jackson, Paula Abdul, and who else is at that level? Suzanne Summers.
But doesn't he say also LaToya?
Someone I want to see sing and dance with no bra. Like that.
I mean, you know. Suzanne did have a Vegas review in the early 80s after she left Three's Company. I don't believe it was topless, and I would just pay real money to see her in Goddess. But yeah, he mentions Janet and Paula, but he also mentions LaToya. I got news for you. Maybe Janet would do Showgirls. Maybe. LaToya is so like Jehovah's Witness. I don't think she would touch this with a 10-foot pole. So neither would Paula for that matter.
Well, I mean, if that's what if that's the shred of realism you're gonna focus on with Showgirls, that's the detail that you are choosing to focus. Well, that never would have happened. You would never have.
That's the one thing.
LaToya Jackson would have never agreed to be in Goddess. Well, then why bother watching the rest?
Everything else, everything else, solid. LaToya,
everything else
pulls me out of the movie.
Just rock solid foundation, but the reference to LaToya Jackson
pulls me right out.
It just wasn't quite realistic.
Yep. That's what gets me. That's a peek into my like stupid brain. Oh mercy! I feel like, to me, you know, we're talking a lot about the performances. Gina Gershon knows exactly what movie she's in. I think,
and to be fair, I'm sorry to interrupt, but to be fair, like that was a line from the VIP edition of Showgirls, like the guy and whoever his name was, who did such a good job with that DVD. You know, he was the one who sort of coined that, like, you know, Gina Gershon knew exactly what she was doing, you know, and so credit to him for sort of anointing, you know, Gina Gershon as you know, being able to rise above the catastrophe of what this movie did to other people's careers, because she clearly did have fun with it. Yeah. And it's good that he is the one who pointed it out.
His name is David.
She really walked into every scene, and you can see she got this twinkle in her eye where she was just having a blast, you know, and like, and she, of course, she took it seriously, but it, you know, it is, you know, I also want to, you know, make the guy who did the VIP edition for the DVD,
David Schumacher. That's his name.
David. I mean, he, you know, as you mentioned, he is largely responsible for everything the Showgirls has become, of reminding people about how wonderful it was. And it's references like that. So I'm sorry, but please keep going.
You know who else knew what movie she was making? Mama Bazoom.
Oh, God.
Yeah.
She was committed.
I feel like I remember when I first watched this movie with you, I feel like you were just repulsed and just scandalized by that character.
I'm not repulsed. I
was repulsed by the character.
I just
not the
don't
actress,
understand. Yeah, the character. I just don't understand the idea of like a warm-up act in a strip club that's like a heavy-set middle-aged woman that does insult comedy but also shows her tits.
You're the only one that could get my tits popping.
And suggest that you roll her in flour
to find the wet. Oh God!
To find the wet spot. You know, like just I can't even. It was. And again, who writes these lines for women? I mean, who?
Yeah.
What were they thinking? Like, why would you have a woman say something like that? Like, it just like that. That's actually the only we talk about things in this movie that bother us. I was actually not bothered by the rape scene. Mm-hmm. I was bothered by Henrietta. I was bothered by the fact that they have this woman just saying these horrible things about herself with no sense of irony, with no double entendre. You know, like, you know, when you have, you know, Estelle Getty insulting B. Arthur in Golden Girls, it was funny. And, you know, we went to find out later that B. Arthur, you know, that's pretty much why she ended up quitting Golden Girls. She was tired of being called ugly on the show over and over, you know, every episode. And, but at least there was a wink to it and it was kind of funny. So it is possible to insult people and have it be funny. And with Henrietta talking about how physically repulsive she was, it's like, well, I never would have even thought about it until you're telling me, and like I have no choice but to agree. Yeah. And like, I mean, it's just, why would you torture an audience like this? And that was really that's the character, the only thing that bothered me.
I would say
Showgirls, you may be surprised to know, but Showgirls is not a perfect film.
No.
That's boss.
No. I would say the intention behind Mama Bazoom's like insult comedy routine is like, well, she's taking the power back and she's like putting these men in their place. But you're right, the way she goes about it and the things that she says are just like, what the fuck? I would have.
She doesn't succeed.
What did she say?
She does
like,
not succeed.
I'd have to piss on you
to give you a clue.
Like, what the fuck does that even mean?
And also,
she's like, there are ways. I mean, Gina Gershon, I thought, was very empowered when she was there naked and dancing around, and you know, just her poise.
Yeah,
she knew exactly what she was doing, and she was the one in control of the scene. And when you have, you know, Mama Bazooms or whatever insulting herself, she was not accomplishing what she was setting out to do. Just because you say, "Oh, I'm taking the power back," no, but you're not. You're insulting yourself, and you're making me agree with you. Like that's not funny.
Yeah.
It is not just because a woman insults herself, like it doesn't mean that she's doing anything for feminism.
Yeah.
Like, and these men who wrote this script that was just so devoid of any concept of reality of how women speak.
Yes.
Of like, you know, like the men who created this movie are so completely oblivious to women being humans, you know, and it's like, this is what they think women do. They think women sit around and do their nails and talk about it, and they think women think it's funny to insult themselves of the way that, you know, it's like, it is not funny, you know, and like, it just shows just how completely gone from any concept of reality this script really is, that these men think that this is what any woman would ever say. Like, and I mean, I've never in my life heard a woman speak this way about herself, or, you know, like, the words didn't even make, you know, it's like, I don't even know who's saying these words. So it was a terrible, terrible character. And the only bad character in the movie, in my opinion. But everyone else was flawless.
Speaking of insane dialogue that kind of you don't know how it's coming out of their mouths, do we want to talk about the doggy chow scene? Which is like the guy who does the commentary calls it the crown jewel of Showgirls. Because what he talks about the scene is that they're having this ridiculous conversation in the forum at Spago about eating doggy chow, and just kind of when you're watching it, your brain is kind of thinking like, what is the intent behind these lines that Joe Esterhaus wrote? And what he said, the brilliance of it is that there's nothing. There's no subtext behind it at all.
No.
Side note,
I think that people take it seriously because, this was definitely Elizabeth Berkley's best scene, and like this was because they were sitting. The cameras were close. The actresses were close to each other. Everything could be more restrained. And Elizabeth Berkley was able to just, sort of say the lines and not overdo everything that like the director was asking her to do. And they delivered these horrible lines, like, and there really wasn't anything to it, but just the way that they're looking at each other, it was so absurdly, unrealistically, sexually tense. It was.
Well, let's take a listen to a clip really quickly, and then we'll dissect it even more. How about that? Because I've got a bit of doggy chow. Here we go.
I don't know if I'm going to be okay. This is. I'm going to get so wound up. I'm getting short of breath. I'm glad you interrupted me because I'm thinking about it, and I can't be expected to communicate. Okay, you're going to play it, and I'm going to be fine.
Let's listen, and then I'll give you a chance to catch your breath, and then we'll come back to it.
I'll be okay.
All right, here we go.
I've had dog food.
You have?
Mm-hmm. Long time ago. Doggy chow. I used to love doggy chow.
I used to love doggy chow, too.
Toasting of the chips.
I get a headache from champagne.
Oh, this isn't champagne.
It's holy water.
This is holy water.
Oh God!
I named myself after this
it.
holy water. Cristal Connors used to have ginger brown hair and little bitty tits. It's amazing what paint and a surgeon can do.
Cheers.
So good.
Oh my God, I just love it so much. Yeah. It is so. Elizabeth Berkley's finest performance right there. And it was so.
I love that she says,
How do people not like this movie?
I love that she says, I named myself after this holy water, like it's Cristal, right?
It's her Versace joke.
So it's her right.
It's
her
Versace.
So she couldn't pronounce Cristal correctly, and she's Cristal. But then she goes on to say that like her actual name is Cristal Lee Connor. So it's like not really that much of a stretch that she went from Cristal Lee, Cristal Light. I don't know which. Cristal Lee Connors had ginger brown hair. That whole lot, like none of that.
Little bitty tits.
And little bitty tits. So we talked a little bit in our Basic Instinct episode about the stilted dialogue in Basic Instinct and how these actors tried their best to make it, not sound like two like Eurotrash guys like on a train talking about like we're going to make sex after the club, but like the thing is, Joe Esterhaus, while he sounds crazy European, is from America. So it's not even like, oh well, Verhoeven, he's from Denmark and English is probably his like third or fourth language. Well, he didn't write the damn thing. Esterhaus did, and Esterhaus is American. So there's no excuses for the crazy stilted dialogue. It maybe is just that Joe Esterhaus just his only interactions with women as like a straight cis white male, up through the 90s is just not very surface, and so he didn't not understand how to write for women, but.
When he listens to women, that's probably how they sound to him. He probably only hears certain words that they say. Because I don't know. I mean, I've heard a rumor that sometimes straight guys don't really listen to women as much as women would like them to.
That's not
and so,
real.
you know, when he's like, they sort of, the words coming out of the woman's mouth go through the straight male filter.
Yeah.
And that's the way that that's what they hear. And honestly, that's also a lot of it is, you know, kind of the way that a lot of men would prefer to communicate. Let's keep things simple.
True.
So it's not, you know, and also there's also the fact when, you know, these things all seem so stilted because there's a lot of pauses to create this sexual tension. That if you're going to have a conversation about eating dog food, how do we make it sexy? Well, the way you make a conversation about dog food sexy is you have the actresses in like this lesbianic like eye lock. And of course they're eating chips because that's what we've already established in this movie. That's what women do. They eat chips to show camaraderie.
Yep.
And, you know, let's eat chips together. And so these women, they're eating their chips and they're looking at each other like hot, steamy porn lesbians that a straight guy thinks lesbians would look at each other like.
Yeah.
And like, okay, we've got to make this conversation sexy. And so, and it's sort of, you know, when they say, well, it's about nothing, the whole idea is that there's so much sexual energy between Nomi and Cristal that they can be talking about dog food and it's still foreplay.
Yeah.
And the fact that they're sitting there having this absurd conversation and like, you know, as the minutes tick on, they're sliding further and further off their own chairs because they're just getting so excited that like, I can look at you and talk about eating doggy chow and I still want to, you know, get you naked and put ice on your nipples. And like, it's just, you know, and this, you know, and I'm sure that the Joe Esterhaus and Paul Verhoeven were like, that's hot. Like,
oh yeah.
It's not. It is not.
Yeah.
It is not hot. But to them, it probably was because they're looking at women as if they're objects, you know, and they're thinking that they're doing women some big favor by making this movie.
It's almost like the way you said it is a conversation they had where they were just like, yes, and they just are so hot for each other, and the sexual tension is so strong you could cut it with a knife, and even if they talk about dog food, it's still sexy. And Esterhaus is like, yes, I got it. I'm going to write up a scene, and like literally wrote that very scene that they were talking about, you know, because they were just jerking each other off.
And I love that for you, Paul Verhoeven is Russian.
Oh yeah,
and that
he's very, you know, everything out of his mouth comes out like this.
Give everybody, anyone from Europe has a Russian accent, you know. Like, yes, and we're talking about dog food. We talk about dog food. It's so sexy. We cut the tension with knife.
And Esterhaus is like, I got you, fam. Let me write this up. And he comes out with this like this gem of an exchange.
It's just awful.
We went to the last time we were at the shops at Caesars, at the Forum shops.
It still looks exactly the same.
Did you see Caesar sing?
Unfortunately, we did not see Caesar sing. But we were there to see Celine sing, and she got the flu for crying out loud and canceled.
We walked up to the Forum, and it was the Coliseum, and it was canceled.
Yeah, so womp womp. But we did go to Spago. We didn't eat there, but we were just like, Cristal and Nomi
We just marveled at the table, and I was like, that is right where the Texans walk in.
Yeah, I went there, and I was pretty underwhelmed because I was expecting to see the Caesars Forum shops from the movie. Yeah. And there's no Caesar singing.
No.
That is not a thing.
No, not at all.
You cannot see Caesar sing. There's no singing, Roman gods in this place. And so I went and I was like, oh, well, there's the there's Spago, there's the tables. This sucks. Let's go. Because I was expecting, like, you're the most beautiful girl in the world. Like having this guy with the laurel wreath and everything. And I was like,
because
I want you to anoint me with champagne.
They build it up so much. Seeing Caesar sing.
Another thing that the Showgirls lied to us. Yeah. It does not happen.
Damn it. Damn them. Are we going to talk about Showgirls 2 Pennies from Heaven?
I have never not seen it. I never saw it.
No, pointless. I was just that was
she was hot, but she was a terrible She was a terrible actress. That whoever played Penny. I forget her name.
It's Lorna
Luft.
Lorna, yes,
Lorna Luft.
Lorna Luft, yes.
Now that I would have.
Her name is Rena Riffle.
Rena Riffle. That sounds like a witness protection name.
That does sound like a witness protection name. But you know what? Speaking of Penny, Robert Davi, who plays the Al from the Cheetah,
he's like the father figure of Nomi, the fucked up father figure.
He's got some stupid lines, but he's committing. I mean, he's fully in this, playing just this like sleazy like strip club general manager. I like,
and they really, and actually, and I having lived in New York as a younger person, you know, you really do encounter club managers who are that disgusting. Yeah. And they do, you know, and even though I wasn't a stripper, but they do, you know, if you want to work there, you have to have sex with them.
Yeah.
And, you know, once you get used to the money, then he's going to start making you swallow, which is the line.
Oh,
and, God. You know, and, I wouldn't know anything about that. No. But, and like suddenly, really, how do you know? But like having worked in nightclubs in New York back when I was young and thin.
Oh yeah.
I didn't enjoy him because I was like, well, that's really what they're like.
Yeah, a little too close to home. Well,
but he was creepy. But I mean, but he does have. I mean, the best line in the movie, you know, must be weird not having anyone come on you. And like. And talking about commitment, like for him to say must be weird not having anybody come on you. Like he saves the emphasis, you know, he gives the C in the word come, just an extra little bit of, you know, je ne sais quoi. That when he delivers that line, I mean, he really does elevate it. That it's like, and that's the best line in the movie.
I'm imagining
good for him.
I'm imagining him in his trailer with the script and just going, not having anyone come on you, not having anyone come on you, not having anyone come on. That's it. I found it.
Not having anyone. Not having anyone come on you.
Yeah.
Not having anyone come on you.
That's his process.
And then we never see him again.
I know.
And then he's gone.
That's like him and Henrietta's like little.
They come in and say hi to Nomi.
Yeah.
Their swan song.
Yeah. They have to remind Nomi of where she came from.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
That's her. They're like cowardly lion. Like, I don't miss you most of all, Mama Bazoom.
You're the only one that could get my tits popping.
I do want to know how they did the dress though. Like how did
right?
I mean, what remote control
are they prosthetic nipples almost? I don't know.
I've never seen any evidence of how they got her dress when she would make that move.
Yeah, how
the top of her dress would flop, move down.
Yeah, I mean that's the magic of movies right there.
Yeah, that's Hollywood, baby.
That's Hollywood.
Wow. Wow. Oh my goodness. What have we not covered in this movie? So much.
I want to say my favorite shot of the movie that I always get so excited when it happens is when it's the scene following when Nomi pushes Cristal down the stairs and they're running outside and Cristal's being hauled off into the ambulance. It drives away and there's this beautiful shot of Elizabeth Berkley.
Yeah.
And she takes off the wig and she has the most evil look on her face. It's my favorite shot of the movie.
It's all lighting.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's so beautiful.
Elizabeth.
And you just get this expression on Elizabeth's face. And that's kind of one of the things that Elizabeth is best in this movie is just when she's sort of reacting, like whenever she's just reacting to scenes. Yeah. It's like when she first introduces Andrew Carver to Molly.
Well, it's because she's not saying saying anything. There's moments when she's not actually saying any lines.
And it's like, and there's also that look of when she introduces Andrew Carver to Molly, and she just sort of turns her head, and you're just like, is she does she have Molly's best intentions? I don't know. It's like she just gave this look.
Yeah.
But she just has this look on her face, though. She had
the best intentions, and the only weird look she got was when Andrew Carver was like, didn't he say something like, I can smell your pussy?
Mm-hmm.
I can smell your cunt. And like, she has this moment when she is concerned that he's a bad guy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But Molly's so excited to be there that she decides that she's just going to hope for the best. No, Nomi Malone is of true heart, and she is the, Nomi only wants the best for her friends.
Mm-hmm.
She's a good person, and she is not offering up Molly to be sacrificed to Andrew Carver.
Right.
And it's like that. I know it's exactly what you're talking about. And the look that she gives that's her concerned face that she learned clearly in acting school. They're like, okay, when you're concerned, what we need you to do is we need you to like hold and linger and like move slowly away from the camera, because that shows that, you're questioning something. She learned that. She's like, oh, I finally get to use this look that I learned in my acting class.
We feel so bad for Molly. That actress is so good, too.
She's really good. I think that she's
a
really
good actress.
good. Yeah.
She's a very good actress.
Yeah.
I would say that Molly, I forget her name, I would say that she, technically speaking, is the best actor in the movie. Kyle MacLachlan was also very good.
Yes, yeah.
Gina Gershon was the most she had the most delicious performance.
Mm-hmm.
She has the funner role of the movie.
Yes, Gina Gershon was in the most indulgent. Gina Gershon was the most, sort of double entendre.
Mm-hmm.
She had the most fun with it. But in terms of a legitimate, what you'd put on your reel, because of course all of these actors are putting Showgirls on their professional reels. If you're going to talk about who gave technically the most honest performance, Molly. Yeah. I mean, she definitely did a very good job with what she was given. And Kyle MacLachlan also did a good job.
Gina Rivera. That's her name.
What is her name?
Gina Rivera, I think. Yep.
Yeah. And she went on to do, wasn't she in Lost? Or she was in something. She ended up going on to
She was in The Closer.
Else, so.
She was in The Closer, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
She did.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, she did some TV.
Yeah. So she's steadily
ended up having her career.
She has steadily worked.
Good. It's like, hopefully this movie doesn't follow people around.
Yeah.
And, but again, Kyle MacLachlan did a good job. It just, in terms of there were legitimate performances that escaped the Paul Verhoeven machine of making everything as obnoxious as possible, which I should was obnoxious. It was flawless. But
we noticed when we were watching Basic Instinct, or I noticed that the woman who's taking Nomi's identification in HR at the casino is in Basic Instinct. Yep.
Yeah, so he has his little troupe. I feel like James's character is interesting because what does he do for Nomi as a character? Because ultimately at the end he's just fucks with Penny, and Nomi's just like, screw you, dude. I don't know. And that's why he lifts right out. We kind of forgot about him. We were like, what the hell is that character's name again? I don't know what.
Yeah, I don't.
What to make of him.
I wasn't. Well, yeah, I mean it says a lot about him, and he wasn't.
We got kind of a cool Prince song in.
I think Prince was supposed to do more songs in the soundtrack, and that's kind of just what they ended up using too. Mm-hmm. I think he was supposed to sort of score the movie with songs.
Interesting.
Can you imagine?
That would have been great
if that had happened.
That would have been great. We have a little
coulda, woulda, shoulda. Imagine if this movie had starred Charlize Theron with music by Prince. What a movie this was!
Yeah, man. Be having a different conversation.
Instead, we did not get that.
I'm just envisioning the poster of the little tease photo, but with Charlize.
Yeah. We have a clip.
So, what was your favorite? Okay, so I have a question.
Sure.
What was your favorite? What's your favorite scene in Showgirls?
I think my favorite scene is when she pushes Cristal down the stairs.
Why?
Just because I love that just blatant push that she just like fucking pushes her.
Just so cunty.
Yeah.
She pushes her, and then and then they're like, "Well, what happened? Who knew?
I just saw her go down."
Anything. And like, well, I mean, how could you have not? How did the people behind them not see her?
I mean, those are steep stairs. I'm surprised that nobody's tripped down those stairs before.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's like the Chekhov's gun of this movie. When you see those stairs, you know that someone's going to fall down them. And I think that's my favorite scene of the movie.
Chekhov's gun.
It's the Chekhov's stairs.
I think, let's see, my favorite scene of the movie, I don't know. There's so much.
Although I do really like the switchblade scene at the beginning because it always makes me laugh every time.
Oh, absolutely.
I do.
Absolutely.
I mean, I have to say, I've got to be the basic bitch and just say, Nomi furiously eating, dipping her French fries into the ketchup,
throwing it,
and I love her delivery of different places. So her meet cute with Molly on the strip where she pukes into the street and almost gets run over by a semi. Because sets the scene for their entire relationship. What about you, Dan? What's your favorite scene in the movie?
Absolutely, and maybe it's because it's at the end, and my passion for this movie has built steadily, scene by scene, and climaxed when she. I can't even say it. When she looks at Andrew Carver, when she goes back to Andrew Carver's room, and she takes off her top, and he compliments her, of course, as you do a lady,
yes.
And when a Las Vegas dancer comes to your room and takes her top off, of course you give her a compliment because it's the gentlemanly thing to do. And she looks at him and says, "Wait." I can't even say it.
Wait do you see them with the
at him and says, "Wait until you see me bottomless."
Bottomless, yep. I was gonna say,
and it still makes me laugh. And wait until you see me bottomless. And she just looks at him, and she's got this this Saved by the Bell wink and this smile, just that's how Elizabeth Berkley decided to deliver that line, da 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 da, and says, "Wait to see me bottomless," and not 30 seconds later, he's licking. And I never understood she had lipstick on her nipples.
I thought they were pasties.
You almost think that it's poison too.
I was hoping. That's what I was hoping. And I was like, I don't understand what's on her nipples. I feel like something on her nipples, there should have been something about that.
Yeah.
Because she's clearly got, I don't know if it was pasties, but I thought it was lipstick. I mean, but then how did lipstick not come off on her
top?
Her top, her corset, whatever. And she pulls out that switchblade and proceeds to beat the living hell out of him. I scream every time. Scream and I cackle. Elizabeth Berkley had no concern for how she looked.
No.
She was just, she was method. She was,
she goes for it.
She was pulling from a place deep within.
Yeah.
And when she was beating up Andrew Carver, the snarls on
I mean,
it was like
you saw it when she was at the cheetah in the early scenes in the movie, and she gets completely naked and she's popping that pussy all over the place. She is committed to this role, and she's committed to kicking in Andrew Carver's face on camera.
She beats the living hell out of him, and it is a glorious sight to behold.
It is.
And it's nice to see the bad guy get beat up.
Yeah.
And it's also satisfying watching, a beautiful woman beat up a man. There's all these Hollywood cliches, but it's also the fact that she does it with such aplomb that, to watch this scene is to love the movie.
Indeed.
It's just
indeed, yeah,
perfect. It is my absolute. And and again, it's pretty much the final scene, because then she goes and, says goodbye to Molly, and then she's out on the strip, and she meets the guy in the truck.
She's on her way to Hollywood.
The circle of life, and then she's off to her next victim.
Oh, man.
I want my suitcase. So, but that movie, I mean, that scene, I finally, I don't know. I mean, just all that energy that she was delivering every line. It was so forced, and finally, it was there's like the one moment of authenticity. And it's like I sort of feel like that scene was a different movie, from which not a better or worse movie. It was just like her, and this is how overanalyzed I am with this movie, but I've watched that over and over and over again, and I rewind it, and I'm like, good for Elizabeth Berkley.
They probably did that.
Maybe she has a future as an action star. Who knows?
Hey, there you go.
They probably did that scene probably pretty late in production, and she was just this character of Nomi was just so much a part of her. I think that's why you got that performance.
Yeah, like you said, method.
It's but Nomi is a part of us all.
Oh my goodness.
We all have a little bit of Nomi within us. We all have a stripper with a terrible past.
That's true. I know I do.
And questionable acting.
So the YouTuber Matt Baum kind of mentions it on You Don't Know Me, but he relates it to the gay community that Nomi kind of finds her people, for good or for bad, even though some of these people are pretty awful. She finds her community, and I think that's why this movie speaks to the gay community too, and especially kind of moving from a small town to like a big city, and kind of that whole journey that a lot of gay men go on.
Mm-hmm.
The gay community, and specifically, and I say gay, and say LGBTQ, because it's particularly among gay men.
Yes,
that there is this idea that gay men are dramatic. Well, it's not really just dramatic. I mean, growing up in life, you have to defend yourself, in a very cis hetero world. And you do that, you can't always, put up your fists and fight everything. So you have to yell and scream and be dramatic and sort of distracting, and, make jokes about things and give people, cut people down quickly and, just verbally eviscerate them very efficiently and get it over with. And so everything is very extreme. And so when you see a movie like this, gay men are just going to be more patient with it. And gay men are going to look past the hate, the noise, and really focus on okay, well, what is really going on here? Because this movie is more than just someone thrashing herself around in a swimming pool having extremely unerotic sex. Because even if it were erotic, the gay men, probably wouldn't really be that turned on by it anyway. So at least the gay men can look at this from an objective perspective and be like, what is this movie really saying?
Yeah.
And that's when you look at it objectively and give it a minute, that's why you can really be like, wait, this movie's actually fantastic and a lot of fun. It's like, look, this movie is an artistic achievement. It's ridiculous, but it is still, I mean, every scene has purpose, every line, they're saying it for a reason, even the dog food scene.
Before this episode becomes, 3 hours long and we need to upgrade our, our podcasting account to hold it, I just want to say a couple of things. Dan Renzi.
Yes.
Thank you so much for coming on this show.
Yeah,
this
thank
was
you so much.
So much fun. But I do really want to just tell you that, so many years ago when you were on The Real World, for people like Scott and myself, being young gay kids, seeing somebody that was 100% themselves represented on a TV show, on cable, on MTV, on the coolest channel on earth, on the coolest
at the time,
on the coolest show on that channel at the time, seeing you, and you were so cute, and you were just but you were unapologetic. You
were
know?
authentically yourself.
Yeah. And that really did a lot for, I think that really did a lot for young gay kids.
Especially me at the time.
Yeah. And I mean, I'm sure you've heard it before, but that was something, and that meant something to people, and to me in particular, and to Scott. And yeah, that was really cool. And when you did reach out to us, it was a real gag-worthy moment for the two of us. We were very much like, holy shit, dude.
That's very nice of you to say. And I do hear it all the time.
Yeah.
I do get this, it's been, we filmed in 1996.
Yeah.
So, do the math.
Yeah.
For the Real World, the first time the Real World, and back then, reality TV, there was no reality TV. It was just that show.
Yeah, it was it.
And so, our contracts, it was like, you film the show and then go on with you're done. Mm-hmm. You have no obligations to MTV. MTV has no obligations to you. It's actually, it wasn't really MTV. It was the production company, Buna Murray Productions, which, now they do everything.
Mm-hmm.
And it became so much bigger than anyone would have ever thought. Because, when I did the Real World, it was just this it was a very cool show. But one of the reasons it was cool was because it was kind of a small thing, and everybody knew about it, but it wasn't people just didn't really know what to make of it. And it hadn't really blown up. And it's funny because I think, a little while ago, someone mentioned the Real World, the original sort of OG Real Worlders like us, and mentioned that we were the original Instagram influencers.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Where, we were influencers before Instagram was a thing. Because, when after the show and then once we started doing challenges, we started getting hired. We would get paid thousands of dollars to show up at a bar.
Yeah.
And we would, and they would say, well, so-and-so from the Real World is here. And I remember the first time I did it, I showed up and they're like, okay, thanks for coming. And I was like, well, what do I do? And they're like, well, you're just here.
Yeah.
You're just VIP. And so I stood at the door and welcomed everyone and said, thank you for coming. I was the doorman because I was like, well, my name is on the thing.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to perform. I need something to do. And they're like, no, you don't actually have to do this. I'm like, no, I want to. And I actually had a blast. And everyone smiled and took pictures with people or whatever. And I was like, thanks for coming to my party. And I was exhausted at the end of the night because I worked harder than any of the bartenders.
Yeah.
And we were making it up as we went. And I would always, always have people come up and say, I grew up in Wyoming.
Yeah.
I grew up in Delaware. I grew up in such and such place. And, you were the only gay person that I knew. Or, I watched this show with my parents. Mm-hmm. And my parents knew I was gay and they wanted to have the conversation. So we would watch you and we would talk about it. And it's so much bigger than me, it wasn't, and, I did the things I did and, I'm proud of things on the show. And there's some things on the show I wish I hadn't said or wish I hadn't done. But in the end result is this is not about me. It's about this institution of providing a voice for people. And you have to, and I have to be very aware that it means a lot to people to have seen this show. And just like it meant a lot to me when I watched Norm, he was in the very first season in New York.
Norm Corpy.
And and I had a lot more gay storylines than Norm did. Mm-hmm. I had all sorts of gay storylines on that season. And, but it's not about me. It's about what this means to other people. Yeah. And so when people say, oh, it really meant a lot, every time I hear it, it's been 20 some years later, it's still like, wow.
Yeah.
You think about what a different time it was back then. And you think, and which is also why it's frustrating when you've got these young kids who they don't care about history. They don't understand. All they care about Stonewall is that it's a reason to have a party and drink during the day in public. I'm like, you don't understand what we went through.
Yeah.
You don't understand what it was like for my family, having people, standing on the street screaming at my parents' house because everyone knew, where I lived.
Yeah.
And screaming that a faggot lives there. And you don't know what it's like, to have like my little brother in high school be bullied as much as he was, and the teachers thought it was funny, and which still happens today, of course. And you don't know what it was like for when Johnny, the guy I was dating, when we were sitting there, and he was like, "I want to kiss you," but the subtext of being like, "There's a camera here," and like and we had tried several times to kiss on camera, and we were always too scared to do it. And finally we were like, let's do it. And they put it on TV. And I remember the first time I saw that, I was watching that scene with my father, and he looked at it and he made a face like he was disgusted. And he was like, "Oh, Jesus." And then he sort of watched it for a minute, and his face relaxed, and he was like, "Oh, okay." And it's like, I wasn't thinking about the world. I was thinking about my parents, And so for me, it was also a really big experience. And when people say that it meant something to them, well, it meant something to me too.
Yeah.
And so we can sort of have this together, and this wasn't a performance. It was me. And I appreciate that people recognize what was going on. So to everybody who has ever said anything or wishes to ever say anything, I never get tired of hearing it. And as long as people are polite, I do get tired of people interrupting me when I'm in the middle of dinner, and, people are obnoxious, but the obnoxious parts have sort of calmed down. And now it's people who really, and they really want me to hear them when they say, "This meant a lot to me." And I do hear it.
Yeah,
I do. I recognize it. I do understand what it means. And I understand that, yes, it's a compliment for me because I'm the one who did it, but it's not, it's bigger than me.
Yeah.
It's what this meant at the time. So that's my little monologue. I did not have that prepared. I apologize for rambling on.
No, not at all.
It was great.
That this was a big deal.
Yeah, for sure.
It was a big deal. And people, now gay people are all over TV, and I think people a lot of times are a little, they take it for granted, and they are a little arrogant about it. Back then, it took every ounce of self-esteem. I mean, every day waking up and being like, "Oh God, I'm on TV," and just those, trying to go eat breakfast with a camera in my face. And every single thing that I said and did, I was like, everything is going to be up for scrutiny.
Yeah.
And it was very scary. But looking back, it ended up not being a big deal. And it was, life goes on, and I'm not on TV anymore. So it's like,
but you're doing really great work now. I mean, the Rachel Maddow clip, it's on your Instagram. Do you want to plug your Instagram handle so people can look you up?
Well, yeah. I mean, I get my name. I think I don't even know. What is it? It's D.Renzi. Renzi. Yeah. Follow me on Instagram. Yeah. No. So for those of you who are listening at this point, this is me rambling on. If you are still listening, first of all, thank you. Second of all, what they're mentioning is that I was in New York. I work as an RN now, and I was in New York. I was part of the deployment that FEMA organized to staff the hospitals that were overrun with people that were sick with COVID-19. And I worked overnight shifts, and you work 7 days a week, no days off. And I don't know if you've ever worked overnights, but I just became delirious. And I finally couldn't take it anymore. And I took a day off. They gave me one night off where I could just sleep. And I walked to Chipotle to get a burrito. And it was right at 7:00 at night. And that's when they do the clap for the healthcare workers. Mm-hmm. And there was this guy on a bike as I was walking out of Chipotle, and he was riding down the street. And there's a reason this all ties into Rachel Maddow. But there's this guy on this bike, and he's riding down 8th Avenue. And he's like, "It's 7:00. It's time to clap. Clap, everybody. Everybody clap. It's 7:00. And you heard clap, 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 and then someone else joined in, clap, 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 clap. And as I walked back to this hotel that we were all living in the same hotel. by Central Park. And as I walked back to the hotel, the applause got louder and louder, and people started like banging pots with wooden spoons and clapping. And I was like, this is the 7 o'clock clap for the nurses. And it filled the streets. And I was so tired. I was just, deliriously tired. And in this Instagram video, I am gray because I was just sleepy and bewildered, by everything going on. And I pulled out my phone to make a video and I was going to post it on Instagram because I wanted to show my mom. And I'm crying into my phone. I'm holding the phone and I was saying like, oh, they're clapping. It's a 7 p.m. clap. And I just wanted to show it to my mom, but put it on Instagram so she could see it. And Rachel Maddow ended up seeing it. And she ended up doing an entire segment of her show all about me crying into my phone, and I had made some other Instagram videos about like my experience and what I thought and how awful it was, and how, and because my job working in New York, I was being as big as I am. People don't realize I'm like 6'3", and as big as I was, my job in this hospital was when someone would die, I would help the patient's nurse put that person in a body bag. And so I had to lift the person and put him in the bag and wrap him up. Wow. You have to wrap him in gauze, kind of mummify him a little bit and tie up their hands, put tape over their eyeballs. And there's a whole thing. And I did it over and over and over again in this hospital. And so I would talk about that. And Rachel Maddow ended up doing an entire clip about it. And ended up on her show, and people, the next morning, after, it was several days went by, and all of a sudden my phone is blowing up and everyone was like, oh my God, you're in Rachel Maddow. I'm like, what are you talking about? And I had and they had said, well, can we use a clip of yours for a segment? And I said, sure. Well, I didn't realize they're going to do a whole story. Yeah. So when I'm deployed, I'm going to be deployed again to Texas because that is now the place where everybody's dying. Yeah. And I do not say people pass. Oh, he passed away. People are not passing away. This is a violent, painful, long, drawn out death that people with COVID, they do not pass away. They die. And it is a terrible, painful death that goes on for days. And we keep them sedated as much as possible. But you can't keep people completely unconscious. And so it's, I don't know if people really understand the severity, because so many people get it and they're okay, and like they just get a cough for a couple of days and then they end up perfectly fine. And so people see those stories, but you don't see the stories of the people in the hospitals who are dying. So I am going to go to Texas now as part of a team. I don't know if I'm going to be I might go to Houston or I might go to El Paso. And I will be there working and we'll see what happens. So, I don't know how to tell people to wear masks. Yeah.
Wear your mask.
Wear your mask.
Stay home. Stop hooking up on fucking Grindr.
Yeah. Even if you don't want to stay home, just put a mask on. If you're in a place where people aren't wearing masks, leave. Yeah. Because the mask does not really protect you. If they work, if everyone's wearing them. Yeah. But you see, and I'm not going to blame gay people because straight people are doing it too. Straight people, but you see these pictures of these, you go to pictures of Fire Island.
Yeah. I saw those everyone's this weekend.
Packed in. And I'm like, do you not realize that? You're all from New York. Do you not remember what you just went through? Yeah. Oh my God. It's just, and I'm not moralizing about it. I'm just shaking my head thinking, well, in a month, the hospitals are going to be filled again. Yeah. And it's, oh man, yeah, but whatever.
Well, we're doing our part to spread the word with their show, with you on it. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much
again for coming on. Wear a mask, everybody. But
it'll be fun. It'd be fun listening to this podcast in a couple of years, and people are like, "Oh my God, remember when COVID was a big deal?"
Do you remember when they did the podcast about Showgirls and they ended it talking about COVID?
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. Well, this has been amazing. Again,
I love this movie so much.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for coming on.
Showgirls, man.
Thank you. Anyone, and you're welcome to email me, and we can debate the minutia of this movie and
because there's a lot to talk about.
Yes, indeed.
There's a lot,
and I feel like we just scratched the surface of this movie.
Oh, we barely scratched the surface in this podcast.
What's Nomi Malone's fake birthday, by the way?
Oh, it's 7374.
Yeah,
right.
7373.
Okay,
we
sure.
don't even know the year. So we just missed Nomi Malone's birthday.
Oh, it was a couple days ago.
I hope so.
I saw it online.
I had some. I celebrated by eating some chips.
Oh, well, we eat chips every day.
You ate them, didn't you? You ate them.
You ate all the chips. Dan, this has been absolutely amazing. Thank you so much for coming on our show.
Thank you so much.
My pleasure, boys. Have a wonderful night. Thank you so much.
Too. Bye. Signing off. And thank you for listening, everybody. This was amazing. Thanks for sticking with us for so long.
Great episode.
Scott, where can they find us on social media?
Well, you can find us on Twitter at MTMUGPod and Facebook and Instagram at Movies That Made Us Gay.
Yes, indeed. While you're on iTunes, we would love it if you would rate, subscribe, and review our show.
And give us 5 stars, please.
Give us 5 stars.
Do it for Nomi Malone.
Oh, do it for Nomi. Give us 5. Write us a review. Thank you so much for listening, everybody. We will be back next week with another fresh episode.
Yes.
Of Movies That Made Us Gay. Thanks, everybody. Bye.
Bye.